for some of you to get here. I'm going to pull up the stream here on my computer so I can see your questions as they come in. Let's see here, YouTube. And all right, there I am. I got to mute my computer so I don't hear myself. And you'll note my hole is still here. You've seen the hole in previous streams. Ignore it if you see it. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna share this stream on the Twitter. Let's see here. Okay, I see somebody else has joined us. Say hi. I know this is a weird time of night, dinner time, late dinner time, etc. on a Wednesday, no less, but this was really when I could do this. And I've been meaning to upload a video for a while, and I just haven't, I get bouts of anxiety about posting to YouTube. So when I really feel anxious, it usually comes when it's a really important topic to me that I get super anxious. Let me clear my camera lens. There we go. It usually happens when I'm super duper anxious about a topic because it's important to me. So I get a lot of anxiety because I don't want to do it wrong. And editing is, oh, this camera lens, I tell you what, editing takes so long and all of this. So I get really anxious about doing it. And so that prevents me from doing it. It's really weird. I know. Let me hit send on this tweet really quick. Okay. Tweet. And let me see here. Okay. Rebecca Gonzalez. Hello. Nice to see you here. So yeah, I get anxiety about it. And so I just delay it and I put it off and I'm like, okay, well, I'll do it this week. Okay, well, I'll do it this week. Okay, well, I'll do it this week. Well, it's been a few weeks since my last upload. So we're here now though. Say hi in the chat. And we're going to talk tonight about pregnancy and birth in this time of upheaval. And I'm not going to say the C word. It's not something I'm going to say at all. I'm not going to say that word in this live stream. So pregnancy and birth during this whole turbulent world scenario that we're all in and experiencing, because a lot of women are really becoming quite anxious about being pregnant and having to go into the hospital and everything with regard to restrictions and who can go with her, etc. Exactly, Jerry Rule. If I say the C word, I could get banned. I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to. So I'm going to start out. I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal birth history. I have 7 living children. I have had 3 miscarriages. I have 7 living children. One of them was born in the hospital. The rest of them were all born at home, unassisted. I have also practiced as a midwife. So we're just going to start there. My eldest is 18 years old. She'll be 19 in May. And she was born in the hospital. And she was sort of the catalyst for my exploration into home birth and more natural means of giving birth. And when she was born, I initially set out to have all natural birth. It was what I wanted. And then being a first-time mother, and I was alone in a state that I had no family in. I was not in the most ideal of relationship. And that whole backstory is, you know, you've heard it before, so I'm not going to go back into it. Jerry's wife is 16 weeks pregnant, has only had C-sections. We'll talk about that. So I had her, I was pressured by my doctor to have her a week early than her due date. So I was induced a whole week ahead of time. I found out later on that it was because he was going on vacation. So he didn't want to miss me going into labor because he was on vacation. The nurses were very cruel to me. I was 22 years old. I was married. I was 22 years old, and they just treated me like I shouldn't be there and shouldn't be having a baby. They mangled my breasts when I was trying to nurse her after she was born. All this. Well, I was induced, and the induction method was Pitocin. And if you have had Pitocin, you know that Pitocin packs a 1-2 punch. You don't get that natural buildup that oxytocin gives you when you're in labor. And so it's like you're fine, and then you're not, and you're in severe pain. And the kind of pain that Pitocin contractions were for me, I could not tolerate it. It was so horrible. I was in agony. And so I asked for the epidural. They gave me the epidural, and she was born. She was born very quickly, 5 hours from start to finish, from induction to birth, 5 hours. And, all of that went very smoothly. I was laughed at, though, by the nurses, saying that, because I said I felt like she was really low and like she was going to come out soon. And they laughed at me, and they were like, no, you'll be here a while. You're a first-time mom, so you're not going anywhere. You'll be here for hours and hours and hours and hours. Well, an hour after that, she was born. So my experience in the hospital, and I'm just giving you kind of nutshells with each one of these. My experience with the hospital with her really led to the researching as to becoming a midwife and home birthing and more natural means of birth. And so with my second child onward, I gave birth unassisted, and I birthed at home. I've never had a labor more than 5 hours long. And I'm talking labor, like you're in labor, start to finish, 5 hours or less. And I know that that's not always the case with home births, and I've attended home births where that was definitely not the case. I've been a part of 36-hour home births before, where mother goes into labor and 36 hours later, her baby's here. So she was kind of the catalyst for me. And with each new pregnancy and new baby, I seem to do less and less. I do fewer checks on myself. I just kind of pay attention instinctively rather than charting everything. When I'm birthing, I have fewer supplies here now too. I don't pull out all of the everything that I used to pull out. And we'll talk about some of that later on as we go along. Let me see here. I thought I saw something else come through. No, not yet. So my next birth was just a few hours long. Zoe came. She was late. She was 12 days late. My next birth after that was a 45-minute start to finish labor. And he came really quickly. He was really big. He was 10 pounds. He was 2 weeks late. My birth after that was Gabriel, and he was a week early. He came a week early on the dot. He actually came, his birth story is kind of funny. In short, we were having a root beer kegger. We bought a ton of root beer, and we were having a party that night in anticipation for his birth the next week. And we had like the guessing games of, when's the baby going to come, et cetera, all this fun stuff. And I'm generally a maniac about the cleanliness of floors. And he, after the party was over, I was on my hands and knees cleaning the floor because I just couldn't stand it. I was like, oh my gosh, the floor is so dirty after everybody is here. So I'm cleaning the floors. Travis walks the last person out and says goodbye. And then he washed and massaged my feet for me when we were all done right there in the living room. I stood up from the foot wash and massage, and my water broke right there. And it was all over my floor that I had just washed. Hilarious. And then he was born a few hours later. And Liliana was next, and she was born in just a couple of hours. Labor start to finish, I think, was 3.5 or 4 hours, something like that. And I was stark naked in my bedroom, and my feet were so cold. And I told Travis, that was like my only block. My feet were cold. So I told Travis, I need some socks on my feet. And he put the socks on my feet. The second he got that second sock all the way on, she just shut out. She really did too. It was just like lightning bolt, that kid. 2 pushes with her. And next was Henri. He was right here in this room that I'm in right now, right over there. And he was very quick labor as well. And then Cecilia was born in this room also. And it was just all very simple. And like I said, I've gotten really less concerned with all of the diagnostics as I've gotten more experienced with this with myself. And so really the only things I do for myself is regular blood pressure checks, and I take my supplements, and I take magnesium to make sure that my blood pressure stays in check, as well as not getting leg cramps and mitigating any kind of headaches that I might get because of hormone fluctuations, etc. And so I do hormone checks. I do blood pressure checks, and I buy urinalysis test strips. And so I test my urine now and then. And that's all I do. I used to test for gestational diabetes, but I have never had any symptoms of it. So I stopped doing it. Just is not a thing that I do. I did used to go and see a midwife in a clinic, in a medical clinic, just for the paperwork end of all of it. And I'll talk about the paperwork end of this also later on in the stream. I used to go see her, and she would always really push for all of the diagnostics and the group B strep tests. And only one time did she ever get me to test for group B strep, and I tested positive. And then 2 weeks later, I tested negative. So I stopped taking group B strep tests because group B strep is one of those things that is cyclical, and it can come and go, and you can test for it, 4 weeks before your baby's born. I think they do it at 32 or 36 weeks, or I'm sorry, 34 or 36 weeks, so that they can anticipate having to give you IV antibiotics when you're in labor. Well, that's kind of insane because you can test for it then, and then the day you're having your baby, you could test negative. It's very likely you'll test negative. So they're pumping you and your baby full of antibiotics for literally no reason. So like I said, there's lots of things I've just dropped by the wayside because I found that for myself, they're unnecessary. Now for you, they might be necessary. You might want to go, even if you're going to go unassisted, you might want to go to your local clinic and say, hey, I'd like to get a group B strep test. And you might want to go and see them anyway, because in a lot of states you have to fill out the birth certificate paperwork. You have to have the a documentation from a doctor that you were in fact pregnant. I'm going to check Twitter here because I know that there were a few people wanting to see or to watch and to throw their questions. So I use those things prior to birth. And as I get closer, I start to kind of gather my things, and I pull together things like Chex pads, and I've got plastic drop cloth sheeting and old sheets and old towels and stuff like that. Just for when it's time, I lay out all the plastic and I put sheets down and towels about and whatnot, so that we have a comfortable but easy to clean place to be when I'm giving birth. Another thing that I like to have on hand for immediately after birth are different pregnancy herbs. Specifically, I like to use motherwort, and I use motherwort within a few minutes of having my babies because that will help contract the uterus and push your placenta out. So I take that, and that helps deliver the placenta pretty rapidly. Now, if you are going to investigate using herbs in pregnancy, really do your research on it. Consult an herbalist, consult a naturopath doctor. Get some really good study on it before you just, start picking up blue and black cohosh and motherwort and all of these different herbs that you can use to help just before birth and afterward. So I want to make it very clear. I'm not giving you advice. I'm giving you my experience. if you have questions, I will definitely tell you what I would do, but that's not going to be any sort of, this is what you should do. So the reason why I'm a very strong advocate for women birthing I'm a strong advocate for home birth, and I'm a strong advocate for natural birth because of the bonding mechanisms that are in place naturally for mothers and babies to bond after baby is born. Now, second to that, I am an advocate for women being fully informed so that they can go into whichever direction they want to with all of their guns. And they can go into a hospital experience if that's where they choose to give birth and say, you know what, I want to have a natural birth, and you're not going to hook me up to stuff, and I'm going to walk around and I'm going to birth upright, and I'm going to have who I want to have here. I'm going to, and have her list of, I've hired you, you're not the boss of me kind of thing. And I think that a lot of maternal problems that we've had in this country specifically, is specifically because that authority dynamic has been shifted, and it's the doctors who think that they're in charge of the birthing mothers. And that's a problem for me. That's a sincere problem for me, because the doctor's not doing the work to make the baby. The doctor's not doing the work to push the baby out. The doctor wasn't there when the baby was made. And this is a process that we have known how to do for a very long time. And there are so many studies that have been done that suggest that, for the most part, healthy women can have babies at home with no problem, with no complications. And even in my own experience, none of my children have ever had to be seen by a physician after they were born. I haven't had to be seen by a physician, save for one time when I had a slightly more aggressive tear after birth. But that just didn't even get addressed with stitches. Like, it was just a liquid Band-Aid situation. But it wasn't something that I could necessarily see, and my husband didn't know what he was looking at. So with regard to fixing a tear. So, and then as a midwife, I've only had like 6 transfers ever in over almost 300 births that I've attended, either as directly as the midwife or as the assisting midwife. I've only had a handful of transfers, and they weren't even for anything that was that significant. And it was only for the mother. It wasn't for the baby. And there've been 0 baby losses in any of the births I've attended as well. If you look at, she's kind of controversial, but Ina May Gaskin has a self-produced study that she put out about C-section outcomes, different birth outcomes and whatnot that they experienced at the farm in Tennessee. That's what it's called, her little hippie commune in Tennessee, where they practice home birth midwife-assisted birth in home settings, in home-based settings, or home-like settings rather. She has amazing statistics, and they really fall in line with, and however much stock you want to put in the World Health Organization for most things, I do really think that they're solid with regard to what a C-section statistic should look like in a developed country. And we're more than double that. We're more than double what the World Health Organization has cited. We're at like, I think the last time I saw, we were at like 40%, right about 40% was our C-section rate here in the United States. And the World Health Organization says 12 to 15% should be what a developed nation should be going for. And we're just kind of skyrocketed. We're just like, okay, let's cut them open. You've been in labor for 5 hours? Sorry, cut you open. They're really quick to the knife, because you have to remember an OBGYN is a trained surgeon. So that's what they know. There was something, and I'm sorry, there's a lot of these things I can't cite anymore because they're just in my memory bank from years and years and years of research and study and midwifery education, etc. There was one study that was done of medical students who were going into obstetrics that they had never seen a live birth. There's so many of them had never even seen a live birth, and they just had seen modeled birth. Either bodiless, headless midsection of a woman with a doll that comes out, either that or a computer simulated model of birth, not actually seeing a live birth. And it's because they're really just taught, it's insurance safety measures, really. They don't want to become liable at all. I don't know, there's a lot of politics behind it, you guys, and a lot of money behind it. And I mean, I don't put a whole lot of credence in like Ricky Lake's documentary, The Business of Being Born, or there's a few of them out there. Different Birth in America, I think, is one of them. That one's a really good one, actually, because he's actually trying to hunt down why his wife's birth cost as much as it did. I don't think that we've ever spent more than $200 on a birth. Like, really, like, and the bulk of that cost comes from ordering pizza when it's all over, you know, because that's what I want to eat. I always want to eat pizza right away after a baby is born. So we order pizza. And that's the biggest cost of the whole thing. Even if you hired a midwife, you know, $5,000, you're looking at $5,000 to have a home birth with a midwife. I mean, it shouldn't, if a woman is giving birth naturally, there's no reason for it to cost anything more than that, you know? There really, really isn't. But we live in this dollar first driven society when it comes to medicine, that and I don't even classify birthing as medicine, honestly. For me, like, this is not medicine, this is a natural human process. I'm not sick, I don't need medicine. You know, I just need to have my baby. That's what I need to do, and I need to keep myself healthy throughout that process. Now, I'm not dogging entirely, you know, obstetric medicine, and I'm not dogging it, because there are instances where it is life-saving. And I can understand, like Jerry mentioned, his wife has only ever had C-sections. I would ask further why Jerry's wife has only had C-sections, just to get a better picture. But I hear so many stories from women who are told, who say, well, I was told that my baby was too big. I was told that I was pushing for too long. I was told that this, I was told that, and all these things that these women are told, that when they really start talking about it, they're like, wait, my baby wasn't too big. He was only 8 pounds. That's not too big, you know? Or my baby has had shoulder dystocia, so, you know. And I was like, you don't cut babies out for that. It's called the Gaskin maneuver for shoulder dystocia. You know, there's all sorts of different methods that can be employed, but they want the most women through the bed system that they can get, because it's money, because it's all money, you know? I don't know. I can talk about it a lot. I need some questions from you guys, though. I see that there are 9 of you here. So throw some questions at me. I do want to recommend a couple of books that I think, regardless if you're birthing at home or in the hospital, that I think that every woman should look into having, because we are so detached from, because of modern society, we are so detached from our own biological processes, that so many women have literally no idea what actually happens in your body during pregnancy, and the things that trigger birth, and the things that lead up to birth, and the things that happen during birth. Like, so many women don't even know what transition is. You know, I listen to a woman give birth, or I'm watching a birth video, I'm like, oh, there she is. That's transition right there. But we've not experienced it because we've detached it from our normal lives. And people say that we've detached it from our normal lives because, oh, well, women's babies used to die. Okay, well, let's look at a few factors. Let's look at sanitation. Let's look at nutrition. Let's look at women not necessarily knowing what their cycle was, you know, and getting pregnant right away, and back-to-back births, etc. All of these factors. And I'm not mentioning birth control, because I don't believe that birth control is a solving factor here. All of these different factors that led to poor mortality and poor maternal and neonatal outcomes in the past that we don't have right now. I'm not going to chalk all of it up to obstetrics. I'm going to chalk it up to better understanding of nutrition and sanitation first and foremost, and knowing how to care for our bodies, and knowing what our cycles do and what they mean, and what happens at what point in our cycle, and what happens throughout pregnancy. And, you know, learning about these things has really helped women to have better pregnancies and better outcomes with their babies, except for in the United States. For some reason, our maternal and neonatal mortality rates are horrible in this country. For a developed nation, we generally rank dead last among developed nations. In fact, there are some third world countries that have better maternal and neonatal mortality outcomes than we do. And that's a problem. That's a really big problem. And I think that the solution for that is, for the majority of pregnancies, returning to a midwifery model of care. Whether or not you have a midwife or you go about having an unassisted birth at home. They're two very similar things, of course, having a midwife and then going at it by yourself, or going about it with just your husband, or if you just have a doula there or whatever. They're very different things, but they operate on the same principle of letting the natural course happen. Now, of course, if there's something that is going wrong, and let me tell you, when something is going wrong. I think that hubris gets in the way, and these few instances that we see every time the topic of home birth comes up, and it does come up, I don't know, every couple of years, there's some article in the newspaper about home birth because somebody's baby died in a home birth. If that were to happen every single time a baby died in the hospital because of obstetric birth practices and things that doctors miss, or things that doctors do, or doctors pulling a baby's heads as they're coming out and the baby is internally decapitated. Like, we don't hear about those stories in the news. If we heard about those stories in the news as much as we hear about midwifery or just general home birth, tragic outcomes, my gosh, I don't think anybody would ever have a hospital birth ever again. And you can Google this. I mean, I'm not gonna. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. That said, there are times when obstetric medicine is helpful. I have had 2 ultrasounds with 2 of my children, and they were both after vehicle accidents. And it was really just to make sure that the baby was okay. That's the only reason. And I thought that was a solid reason for me to have an ultrasound. I can go into, every reason why I wouldn't have an ultrasound, but that would really take up a lot of time, honestly. It's a decision that you have to make. Some people are upset that I use a Doppler. I do. I have a Doppler. I don't use it often, but I use it often enough to make sure that my baby's heart rate is where it is generally supposed to be at different parts of pregnancy. Sorry, I need a drink here. Okay, questions. Give me some questions, guys. I know you have them because you always flood me with these questions when I'm on Twitter and talking about birth, and so I need them from you. Let me do a real quick search here in my Twitter. Let me do birth. I'm going to search my timeline here really quick. But yeah, I want to see your questions from these accounts. Search. Home birth. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, dead air. Dead air. Dead air. Okay, I see one of these tweets here. I wanted to talk to you guys about. So, in this age of the C word, we've got a question here. Haley, Mrs. C. Oh, that's Molly. She says, if you're not doing ultrasounds, a Doppler just makes sense to me. Yeah, and that does to me too. I don't need to see. I just need to hear. And with palpations and eventually you figure out how to feel where placentas are lying, and you can distinguish the different sounds of the baby versus the placental heartbeat. You know, and you figure it out, and you learn how to figure out baby positions. You can, even when they're bigger, you can actually kind of, you can make out, okay, this is the baby's butt, this is the baby's leg. Like you can work out where the baby's parts are. You can find the baby's head. You can do all of that with your hands. I have a good friend who's been a midwife for, I don't know, forever. And she lives down in Iowa, and she guessed the sex of 2 of my sons because of palpation, because she felt their baby boy parts when she felt my belly. So, I mean, this is what you learn how to do as a midwife, and you can even learn how to do it on your own belly as you're pregnant. Haley says, I've had 3 C-sections. How does that work during these times? Is natural birth possible for me? Okay, so natural birth is possible. I know a lot of people who have had C-sections and have had Vbacs. In fact, a friend of ours was here today, and his wife, he was talking about a couple of different women who've had Vbacs. One of them had 3 Vbacs after a C-section. My good friend who I was just talking about, who's a midwife, she's had, let's see, her first 2 were C-sections. She has 7 children. First 2 were C-sections. All the rest of them were VBAC home births. So it is possible. If you go the midwife route, and depending on what your state does with regard to midwives, there are some states where having a midwife at home is illegal. So it depends on what you want to do about that. I'm not going to give any legal advice with regard to that. I'm a rule breaker when it comes to that, because I don't think that the state has any governance over what I do with my pregnancy and my body. If I can take my body to a Planned Parenthood at any time in my pregnancy and kill my baby, then they'd have no say over how I give birth or who I give birth with, you know? So that's my personal opinion. So you do you. But if you do decide to go the VBAC route, you have to really work hard to find a midwife who will attend that. And she's probably going to have the caveat that there's going to be certain signs she's going to look for, that if these things happen, you have to transfer. So there is a little bit higher risk when it comes to a VBAC, but it definitely can be done. I know plenty of women who have, and the statistics bear it out, that it is beneficial. So you just have to weigh it for yourself. You have to pray on it. You have to consult a midwife, and if that's the route that you want to go. I would never, ever, this is just me personally and my own comfort level, I would never advocate for a VBAC to go for an unassisted birth until you've had a VBAC with a midwife. And that's just me. I know some unassisted birth people are super purists and are like, no, just go ahead and do it. And I'm just, that's where I take my caution. I'm like, you might want to be a little smarter than that and find out all of the pros and cons here of doing this yourself. Let's see. Melanie, can't think of any questions. Just love hearing about your experiences and thoughts. Thank you, Melanie. And I miss you. I was thinking about you recently. V. Gonzalez says, why wouldn't somebody want an ultrasound? I know nothing about midwifery. So there's a lot of reasons why somebody wouldn't want an ultrasound, but the sound itself is like putting your baby's head next to a train track as a train is going by. Like there's just that much amplified sound in your uterus. A Doppler is similar to that, but it's not as intense, especially a home handheld Doppler. It's not the same kind of Doppler. Hang on one second. I'll go grab mine. It's right over here. Just give me one quick second. Okay, this is my trusty little handheld Doppler, and I've had this thing forever. And it's just an ultrasonic pocket Doppler by Eden Instrumentals, made in the PRC. I don't know, I bought it like 15 years ago. Like this thing is old and heavy duty, and it just runs on a little D-cell battery, and it works for what I need it to do. Let me see what the handle says here. It's waterproof, so I could use it in the shower if I needed to. If I was in the shower laboring, I was trying to look at the specs on it here, but it doesn't seem to be showing anymore. But this is all I use, and it works really well. I don't use it for very long. Whereas the one in the hospital, in the clinic, is super duper powerful, and it is a lot more noise in the baby's space than what this thing would produce for the baby. And I use this for maybe a minute tops, and I only do it every, I don't know, in the early, like between now, we just used it the other day, 144 beats a minute was my average. Use it now through about, I don't know, 34 weeks or so. I'll only use it once every few weeks. 34, 36 weeks and up, I'll use it weekly just to keep track. And then like the last day, I'll listen basically every day, because babies start to slow down, and every mother goes, oh my gosh, my baby's dying, because you don't feel your baby move as much. But then when you actually slow down and realize, oh yeah, my baby is still moving around as much as baby does, they're just doing it in a slower, more confined way, you know. But yeah, that does help out quite a lot. But yeah, the ultrasound, just having all of that noise hitting your baby's head, ultrasonic waves are just, they're really not good for your body and your brain and your whole sense of self, or your whole self. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I can probably link in the comments after this processes when we're all done here. Let's see here. Casey Peterson, I'm 38 weeks pregnant with baby 7, and this will be my 4th home birth. I live in Florida. Midwives in my area are so expensive, $7,000. It was half as much when we lived in Missouri. I wish I could go unassisted. I've had some severe tears with my home births, where I've had previous episiotomies with my home births. Any tips on preventing tearing? Doing a lot of, I use a lot of essential oils in carriers that are really good for your skin. So like calendula oil with evening primrose oil in a carrier, just to do some perineal massage in the area, do some light stretching in the area. If you're home birthing, and if you want to expand on why you can't go unassisted, go ahead. I'm happy to help you work through that if you have questions about going unassisted, or if it's a convincing husband of going unassisted, which I have opinions about that too. Go ahead and expand if you like, but really working to massage that area, but also doing pelvic floor strengthening exercises really help. I've had some just light tearing. I've never had an episiotomy. And this is the thing about episiotomy, is that midwives are often taught that, my ugly fingernail polish that's coming off. All of the girls painted their fingernails the other day, and I was like, oh, I should too. I never do. And I did. And now it's gross. One of the things that is taught is with episiotomies is think about fabric. If you sew, or if you ever have cut any fabric at all, if you cut the fabric, it tears really easily. If you then go tear it, it tears really quickly and easily. If you just try to tear the fabric itself, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot to get that done. So of course, if you've had an episiotomy, everything's going to tear a lot easier. And a lot of women who've had episiotomies, when they're giving birth, in the instance that they've had the episiotomy, their body will tear even more from the base of the episiotomy cut. So they'll end up with a really severe tear. And it's really difficult to recover from that. So just really make sure that you're preparing that whole vaginal area so that you have as least tearing as possible. Like I said earlier in the stream, I had a slight tear that I had to go in for because it just seemed to be deeper than what I was able to handle at home. Turns out it wasn't, but it seemed that way. Let's get another drink here. So yeah, it's really just all about preparation. And a lot of doctors say, I've actually heard doctors say that doesn't really do anything, that doing the different perineal massage and exercises and stuff is just a waste of time, but it's not. I mean, in my own experience, it's not. In the experience as a midwife, it's not. So yeah, that's good. So the question I was going to address here from Twitter was about hospitals right now telling women that they can't have their husbands there. And this is part of the I've hired you, you're not the boss of me kind of thing. I know that sounds really toddler, like you're not the boss of me, you're not my real mom, but it's true. You've hired that physician, and for them to take away your primary, if your husband is your primary, or your mother, or your doula, or whoever, your primary source of comfort in your most vulnerable state of being, that is medical neglect. Period. End of story. And I think a lot of people know me well, my Twitter followers, friends who are watching, personal friends in life here. When I say that if a hospital tries to give me the nasal swab, if I had to go in with this pregnancy, if I have to go into the hospital, first of all, I'm not going to the local county hospital. I'm going to a Catholic hospital. But if they think they're going to swab me or prevent my husband from being there, they've got another thing coming. I will not, there's no way I'm going to submit to any of that, because I'm not ill. So you don't need to swab me for this test. Just like I don't have group B strep, so you're not swabbing my vagina. I don't have gestational diabetes, so you're not. I don't have this. I don't have this. don't have STDs, so you're not putting silver in my baby's eyes. I mean, all of these different things that they do just in case. No is a complete sentence. Every single time, no is a complete sentence. And you are entitled to have exactly who you want to be there. No more, no less. So if I want my husband there, my husband is there. If I want my husband and my daughter and my son and my mother and my aunt and my best friend and my doula, they're all going to be there. Period. That's how I feel about it. And the fact that women are settling for this and going, oh, okay, and I guess I have to wear a mask around my brand new baby. Stop doing this. I've seen so many pictures, and it breaks my heart every single time, of these new mothers who have their little precious babies right here by their face, and they've got a mask on. And I'm like, okay, you are the first thing that your baby sees and senses and smells and tastes and knows and hears and recognizes, because you are all that baby has ever known. And you've got half of your face covered. That's detrimental for your baby, and it's detrimental for you, because our bodies rely on our sense of smell to smell our babies. That's part of the bonding with our babies, is smelling them, is tasting them. The kisses, that's like we're tasting our babies, and our bodies have a biological response to that. That biological response results in what our milk does for our babies. And people don't process this. They don't understand this. And that's why this is so destructive. Like, look at this. Do you think your baby, like, this is the first thing your baby should see? Hi, I'm your mommy. I mean, come on, you guys. What? How human is this? This is not human. This is dehumanizing. This is dehumanizing for you and for your baby. I can't imagine how many mothers are going to be suffering even more postpartum depression, postpartum stress, postpartum anxiety, postpartum psychosis, etc., because of all of this nonsense, because of the C word. And these initial bonding moments are being destroyed. Casey says, my fourth was actually an accidental unassisted home birth. I've been doing perineal massage to prep, but I'll add the EO. An accidental unassisted home birth. I'd be interested to hear that story. I love accidental unassisted births. I have my husband's cousin, actually, I don't know why she goes to the hospital anymore. She has her babies so quickly. She had one of them in the car, and she had one of them in the doorway of the hospital. I think she might have had another in an elevator. I can't quite keep it straight, but she's had a lot of babies. They come quickly, and I'm just like, have your babies at home already, So an accidental unassisted birth, I mean, so see, you can do it. You can do it. You know, if you want to DM me on Twitter and, you know, we can have a conversation about it, I'm totally open to it. I'd love to hear more about it if you're willing. So really the last story there was really just, it's a matter of making sure that people, they know that you're the one who's in charge, you know, and you make the decisions. And this extends for me personally, this extends even into postpartum care, you know, who you allow to come to your home, who you allow to hold your baby, who, you know, all of this, like, fathers are important. I won't ever deny that, but you are the single most important person to the life and well-being of that baby. And it's not bonding for grandma. The baby's like, who the heck is this? Give me back my mama. I'll tell you really quickly that when I have babies, I stay basically upstairs in my bedroom for the first 2 weeks. I don't see very many people. You know, people will bring food and whatnot, and rarely will I leave my room. Only a few people have ever seen my babies in the first 2 weeks after they're born. And after that, people don't hold my baby. Like, even my husband holds my babies, but obviously because they're his babies, but he understands that this is about this dyad. The most important thing in the world is this dyad. And his duty is to take care of that dyad, to make sure that baby is well and fed, to make sure that I am well and fed so that baby is well and fed. And then that cares for us. And that's his duty. That's his duty right there, is to care for and protect this mother-baby dyad in the first couple of months of life. We don't even let grandparents, and it's not just my decision either. My husband doesn't even we don't let anybody hold their babies, you know, and if we do, you know, we really love you and trust you, you know, but like grandparents, aunts and uncles, nobody. It doesn't happen. I had a new baby years ago, and I was in a thrift store, and this woman walks up to me and starts touching my baby, and I said, "Don't touch my baby." I put my hand, like I touched her, and I put her hand. I was like, "Get away." And she goes back to do it again, and I slapped her. It's like, "Don't touch my baby." I am a monster. I will not let you. And if you persist, I will be mean. That's just the way that it is. Casey says, "I completely agree with everything you're saying about the masks and everything going on with the C word. And I do the same thing with my babies for the first 2 weeks." Yeah, I mean, it's just super important. And I don't think enough people understand it, because we have been so separated from who we are as human beings. I mean, it's not just evident in birthing practices and pregnancy practices. It's evident everywhere. I mean, the transgender movement, and the fact that we can kill our babies, and the fact that we don't know what mothers and fathers are anymore, and that we have associated sex with sex work is work, you know, that this kind of rhetoric, that we've just reduced everything down to non-human experiences or something, you know what I mean? It's all been so dehumanized. And so to add all of this on top of it is like, I just can't understand how so many people are so willing to go along with all of it. And then to translate that into the birth world, it's like, what are you doing to people? What are you doing to mothers and to babies and to family units? I mean, we have a friend whose sister-in-law, I think, just had a baby, and she didn't get to see her baby for days after having the baby, because she submitted to the nose swab and tested positive, and then they didn't let her have her baby. No. I will go scorched earth if somebody tries to prevent me from having my baby. Not happening. And so that's why I really want to talk about things like birthing at home, and helping women to have the confidence to, yes, you can. And getting husbands on board. I can understand why husbands get upset and get a little nervous about it. And maybe one of these, I'll try to do another one of these next week, and I can have Travis come in and give the papa's perspective, because I didn't really have to do much work to talk him into home birth, because I had already been having babies, and you know that if you know our backstory and whatnot. So he knew I knew what I was doing, but being the first time we had a baby together, it was nerve-wracking for him. So our doula friend was there at the same time, and she was really there for him, not for me. But it's a hurdle for fathers to accept this, especially because of how we've grown up enculturated by media, that this is what birth likes and it looks like, and it's like in the movies, and she's panting and she's screaming, and all of a sudden it's a complete emergency, and her water broke on the restaurant floor, and it's coming, it's also the whole panic scenario. Well, that's not reality. But that's what so many people have been enculturated with. And we hear so many stories that are really scary stories. And they're really scary stories because this is what doctors have put into women's heads. You go into the doctor, and the doctor's like, I literally had the midwife at the clinic I was going to years ago say to me, oh, well, if you don't let me do an ultrasound on you, they're going to get mad at me because your baby could die. If you don't get the flu shot, your baby could die. If you don't let me give you you don't take the glucose test, your baby could die. Everything is about getting it into your head that your baby could die. 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 And so then all you're thinking is, oh my gosh, my baby could die. My baby could die. My baby could die. Instead of thinking, oh my goodness, God has given me this amazing gift, and I have to nurture it, and I have to nurture my body, and I have to nurture myself, and I have to learn, and I have to trust that God has given me the ability to do what I'm supposed to do. And in saying I'm going to trust God with the abilities he's given me, doesn't mean I'm just like flying blindly into this like an idiot. It means I'm using my brain that God gave me, and I'm also using my instinct that God also gave me. You can use both of these things at the same time to arrive at the decision that makes the most sense for you, whether that's giving birth at home, or it's giving birth in a hospital, or it's giving birth in a birth center, or wherever, in your car, in your backyard. I'm not going to give birth in my backyard, but Molly, Mrs. C says, if you follow Brianna on Twitter, maybe you could do a split screen interview. She literally just gave birth at home a couple of days ago. That would be, I saw her baby. I showed Cecilia her baby. I said, do you know that her baby's name is Cecilia? And Cecilia sees babies now. And she's like, baby, hi, baby. And she just wants to like hug the babies on the screen. So cute. I can't wait till she is going to go nuts when this baby is born. Lauren, hi, Lauren. Hi, friends. Here to enjoy you speaking truth. I am so glad you're here. We should do a split screen sometime too. That would be awesome. So again, going back to this idea that women need to be fully informed. And if women are fully informed, they can fully inform their husbands. And I think a husband who is more fully informed is going to have an easier time getting on board with the fact that you want to have home birth. And I think that a lot of the times that, in addition to all of this enculturation that we have, a lot of times that husbands have a hard time with this is because they have zero control over this situation. They're not pushing this baby out. They're not experiencing any of this. And so they're like, okay, well, what do I do? I should have Travis come, because Travis does what I ask him to do. That's what he does. He lets me do my thing. And he knows when I go into full gear, he's like, oh yeah, okay, we're on, game on. And he just he's quiet. He does things. He sets up cameras because we film our births for ourselves. He sets up cameras. He makes sure he comes and checks now and again, just doesn't touch, because I don't want to be touched when I'm laboring by anybody unless I say so. He just kind of checks to see what's going on the undercarriage, and If I need him to rub my back, he'll rub my back. If I need something to eat or drink, or can you change the music? I don't want to hear this song. Everybody be quiet. He's on it. And he's like, as I go into my own space with labor, he goes into his own space too. And that space surrounds us, just like I was saying before about his role is the caring and feeding of me so that I can care and feed the baby, and he's thereby protecting us both. It's the same with labor and pregnancy, or with labor and birth. I'm in my space and his space surrounds us as the baby and I are working together. And then when I need him, if I need him to catch the baby, he'll catch the baby. If I don't need him to catch the baby, he's usually behind me for me to lean on as the baby's coming out, so I can catch the baby and bring the baby up to me. And then, we have our minutes and moments and whatnot as baby's brand new and I'm, cleaning baby off and getting the sucking. And this is something you should do too. Like the little, the little nose suckers they've got in the hospital. I don't use those. I just here's baby's face and suck it out, spit it out, clean the baby out yourself. And that's part of that biological process of tasting your baby. And people think, some people hear me say these things and they're like, that is so weird, lady. What is your deal? And I'm like, why do you think mothers want to eat their babies? Every mother's like, oh, I could just eat you, your little chicken fat thighs. And, oh, you're so cute. I just want to gobble you up. That's why. It's a biological process. Lauren says, so primal, love it. And that's what it is. And that's what it should be. That's how God designed it. And it should hurt. It does hurt. I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't hurt, but every single time I push a baby out, I'm like, oh, let's do this again. That was awesome. Every single time. I'm just so thrilled by it. It's such an amazing thing to be a co-creator with God in this amazing way. And I just want to do it as much as I can, and I love all of my children and I just want to make as many of them as I can. And, so, just like I said, that's part of the tasting process. That's part of what we need to know. Now, I don't go as far as eating the placenta. I know a lot of people who do. I can't bring myself to doing that. I've never been able to. If you do that, girl, you are a stronger woman than me. But nope, not for me. So I have the baby, we do our thing. And then when I need to pass the baby off to him, he'll take the baby, takes his shirt off, puts the baby on him because he knows. And by then we probably, it was most likely after the cord is done pulsing and whatnot, and we cut it. I don't have lotus births at all. I think those are weird. If you do it, great, good on you. I think it's weird. And a lotus birth, for those who don't know, a lotus birth is when you have had your baby and then you birth the placenta without cutting the cord. And then for the next few days, you've got this placenta and the cord in a bunch of different herbs and salts and whatnot, drying herbs and drying salts, wrapped up in some fabric in a bowl that you then carry around with you. If you're carrying your baby, you want to wander downstairs because you've been in your bed for 2 weeks or whatever, you carry the bowl and your baby around and let the thing basically rot off of your baby. I think it's weird, so I don't do it. But I know people who've done it. So hand the baby out to him, and then I, finish the work of having my placenta and, and that's about when I do my own preliminary cleaning up and get a shirt back on. I'm usually basically naked when I give birth. Clean everything off and then get in bed basically. And that's what gives my baby back to me. Melanie wonders if I've ever done anything special with placentas in the past. We buried Sophia's placenta under a fruit tree in our yard. The last 2 babies, we have their placentas. We haven't buried Cecilia's yet. It's in the deep freezer still. But yes, I bury them underneath fruit trees. So I've got Henri's and Liliana's underneath apple trees in our front yard. Gabriel's went under some other fruit tree. Everybody else's, yeah, just we bury them underneath fruit trees or bushes or whatever. Just as a, we've got to do something with it. We're not going to throw it in the garbage because it's not garbage. But I know that it is nutrient dense. So I'm just going to put it underneath my fruit trees. So yeah, that's what we do with it. And then the cleanup happens. Travis does all the cleaning up. And the way I lay the bedroom out makes it really easy for him to do too. So our bed is right in the middle of the room, and I'm usually in this area that's around it. And, he'll pull up the sheets first and bundle them up and put them right into the washing machine downstairs, and any towels that we've used or receiving blankets that are bloodied, he'll bring them down there right away. And then he'll pull up the plastic sheeting and do a quick floor cleanup. Oh, I've got an alarm going off. There we go. Do a quick floor cleanup. Not of like blood or anything, because there's not any on the floor. It's just like if it needs to be vacuumed or something. He'll do that, make sure we're tucked into bed, and get me fed right away. So he does that. He's like really efficient about it. And it's a pretty amazing process. And then everybody is in here too when I'm giving birth. All of my children have watched me give birth. And a lot of people are really squeamish about that because I don't know why. They don't want their children to see them naked. They don't want their children to see the baby come out of their vagina. Whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but we let them because we think that it's really important that children understand this biological process right away. And it goes hand in hand with making sure that we don't use, pet names for body parts either. The other day, Henri said he had a thingy. And I was like, where have you heard that? You do not have a thingy. You have a penis because you're a boy. You do not have a thingy. And we don't use words like that. And I was really firm about it because from the get-go, we're like, okay, this is the biological process. This is what actually happens. This is like the pinnacle of what womanhood is. Babies come out of your vagina. And we've had to have the conversation again recently because who was it? I think it might have been Henri said that Cecilia came out of my butt. And I was like, no, she didn't, buddy. That was not where she came out of. And so we had to talk about the process again. And he's 5 now. So, he was, younger. He's 3.5 when she was born. So he'll see the process again. And he understands, gets it. They get it. And having them engaged and understanding, and we don't force them. If they don't want to be in the room, they don't have to be. But they do, though. They want to see it, and they want to be a part of it and be like, wow, my mom did that, and that's my new baby brother or sister, and they're amazed by it. They really, truly are amazed. They're not grossed out. They're not too loud. They don't get eked out. They don't make fun. They don't make weird noises. They are just enthralled with seeing this awesome, amazing thing happen. Molly says, Paul was raised not to use pet words too. People used to give his mom a hard time about it. I've learned there's a lot of child psychology out there about using pet words, that children who are taught to use pet words are open for predation. Like that's a big blazing sign for child predators saying, this kid is going to keep our secret because this kid doesn't know what a penis is. This kid does not know what a vulva is. This kid does not know what an anus is. Like we use all of these words with our children so that they are not, and we tell them, this is your private body part. God made you beautiful. This is yours. And if anybody touches it without your permission, that's wrong. And you need to tell somebody about it. And if you're giving your kids pet names like, this is your thingy, or this is your hoo-ha, or this is your whatever. Like I've heard people say cookie or whatever. Like there's all sorts of horrible names that people name their children's genitals. I'm like, that's crazy. First of all, I think it's sexualization. I really do. I think it's sexualizing your children. But then it's also setting them up for being victims of predators. So I think it's really important. And I think that letting children witness the birth of their siblings goes hand in hand with that, because they understand that the biological process is that in private, mama and papa do what they do to make a baby. A baby's made, and then here comes the baby, and that's where the baby comes from. And this is life, and this is what God made us for. This is one of the reasons why God made us. And this is the duty of the mama, and this is why the mama nurses the baby, and why mama stays home with us, and all of these, it's biologically based. And that's how we operate our family too. Like I'm home with our children because that's what I'm biologically hardwired for. Like my biology is tuned in to the care and rearing of my children. My husband is tuned into that too, but he's tuned in a different way because he didn't grow them in his body, and he didn't birth them, and he didn't feed them from his body. His bond is different. And I think it's really important, especially in this weird age where, we like to pretend that men get pregnant all of a sudden. No, they don't. They do not. Let me see here. There were a couple more questions on Twitter here. Let me grab it up here. Oh, and that's what I was going to give you too, was kind of an update about this pregnancy. So I am, let's see, this Friday is 17 weeks pregnant. So we're almost halfway there. A lot of you know that I was super duper sick and tired the whole first trimester. Like I would get out of bed and I would make an omelet and I would eat it, and then I was done for the day. There was nothing else I could do. I was sleeping so much, and I would just sit on the couch, and I was sitting on the couch and I'm like ready to fall asleep. And I'm trying to teach English to children and was like, oh, okay, well, why don't you just play ABC Mouse for a little while? And I let ABC Mouse and Adventure Academy and teaching textbooks do all of my teaching for like that whole time, because I couldn't do anything. And my daughter, Zoe, my oldest, who's home, was texting my oldest, who's away at college. She's like, oh man, I feel so sorry for mom. She can't do anything right now. And this is the most exhausted I've ever been in a first trimester of a pregnancy before. So it was really kind of like I got hit by a Mack truck. It was pretty interesting. And now I'm great. I did just have I have an itchy nose. I'm not sick. I just have a really itchy nose right now. I just got off of a 4-day bender of a migraine that had me in bed for 2 days. It was pretty rough. I had a fever. I had light sensitivity. It was bad. It was really bad. And I usually get 1 or 2 migraines a year, but this one is not usually around this time. It's usually closer to springtime when things are new. I've got different, excuse me, I had some cabbage as I was cooking before I came up here. So now it's kind of making me have a little bit of indigestion. Super indigestion now, which is awesome, guys. I tweeted about it one night. I was like, I have entered into the burning pits of hell coming out of my esophagus phase of pregnancy or something like that. It was funny. V. Gonzalez asks, anything you recommend that helps with morning sickness? For me, I really like cheese. I like cheese in the morning, and I also like pickles. And pickles, it's because the neutralization, that the vinegar actually helps neutralize my stomach. Fermented pickles, that is. I don't like just your regular off the shelf at the grocery store jar pickles. I like fermented pickles. Bubbies are my favorite, or homemade fermented pickles, but I didn't have any for a while. I had some refrigerator pickles that I made, that those helped. Those were good. Those were the best pickles I've ever made, actually. So for me, it's pickles and cheese, yogurt, really heavy protein. Really, really helps me. So often I would eat for breakfast eggs and sausage, and that's all I would have. I wouldn't have any carbs. I wouldn't have any fruit juice, nothing, just eggs and sausage for like 4 weeks. That's all I ate for breakfast, was eggs and sausage, some variation of eggs and sausage. I know a lot of people like to say soda crackers or ginger ale. Ginger ale does help with me though. I do like ginger ale. Ginger candy helps. And when I say ginger ale, I mean like, I don't mean Schweppes. I mean like Virgil's, or not Virgil's, it's Reed's. Reed's is the ginger ale brand. I think that's the same company that makes Virgil's root beer. Let's see. So yeah, that's it. That's what I would recommend. Lauren says, I'm loving this stream. I am now experiencing the tiredness and sickness you described this pregnancy. My hormones seem extra intense also. Any recommendations for the mood swings? Yes, I have recommendations for the mood swings. First of all, you should take melatonin at night. I think everybody should take melatonin at night. There are a few reasons. Part of it has to do with the C word that I'm not going to say. So what is it? It's zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D3, and melatonin that everybody should be taking right now. If you're not taking them, please start taking them. C, zinc, D3, and melatonin every single day. The melatonin, and here's why. So we learned when year and a half ago, when Henri was diagnosed with his epilepsy, doing all this research and listening to his doctors, his neurologist, we learned that melatonin, low doses of melatonin, are really recommended for people who have epilepsy, people who have ADHD, people who have mood swings and such, because it gives your brain rest time. And in its rest time, it has growth time. So if you're taking the supplements that you need to take for brain growth, like your omega-3, your fish oils, all of that kind of stuff, taking melatonin on top of that, and B6 is another good one, taking those on top of, or taking melatonin on top of all of those brain builders, they work together to give your brain rest and give your brain time to grow those synapses that help balance things out for you. And I don't think I'm explaining that exactly the way I should be explaining it, but that's kind of the gist of it. And then also, as needed, I take St. John's wort. So if I wake up and I'm like super grumpy and I know that it's hormonal, I'm like, okay, today's a St. John's wort day. So I take St. John's wort. Brandy, is this Brandy who, no, that's Brianna. Hi, Brandy. I'm glad you're here. You're late, but, which you say, sorry, you're late. I'm glad you're here also. So yeah, St. John's wort and vitamins. And then, for energy, I would say B12. And I think that women in general should have their B12 levels checked. Because a lot of, when we're stressed or we have high anxiety, our bodies generally just like leak B vitamins in general, like a leaky faucet. And when women especially have really low energy, chances are it's one of two things. It's iron and B12. So making sure that you've got adequate B12. And the one that I have is methylcobalaminated, and I buy it at Walmart. And I think it's Nature Made. I can't remember the brand of it right now. I'm so sorry, but Walmart's the only place I can find it. And it's this particular kind with the methylcobalamine, and it's organic and non-GMO. So it's good stuff. So B12, iron, these are all these good things that help keep your energy levels up. And I take my B12 at night so that I have that energy spike in the morning as my body has metabolized the B12. And then if I need another spike in the morning, or I need to have, if I'm waking up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be really exhausted today because I don't feel rested, I'll take a little bit more in the morning, because then it'll metabolize for the afternoon when I need it to be present in the afternoon. So that's kind of that. Energy, mood swings, making sure that you're fed just like normal. Like you need a nap and a snack. I mean, what book of the Old Testament is that in? It's like Ezekiel or something. You need a nap and a snack and things will be fine. Sometimes you just need a little Fraggle Rock and some music and a peanut butter jelly sandwich. If you saw that, oh my gosh. If you guys saw that video, it was on Twitter, made the rounds on Twitter. The little girl just wanted to listen to Fraggle Rock and have a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Or, you could surprise me. So cute. But she was so right. Sometimes you just need a nap and a snack and maybe some music that you like. And that will help. And then, of course, I think most, if not all of us, are Catholic here. Staying in our sacraments, that really helps. Offering it up. You gotta offer that up. And, it's all discomfort and pain for a purpose. And it's the cross that we as women were meant to carry. So, that's what we got to do. I'm sitting right in front of the baseboard heater and I have to keep turning it back down every time it turns itself back on. I'm like, whoo, it's a little hot on my back. Yeah, it is, Brandy. So Brandy says, makes sense. It's so hard to see when we're in the middle of it. It really is. And my friends and my family always tell me, like people who know me really intimately in real life, they're like, you are no fun to be around at the very end of your pregnancy. And I was like, I know. I kind of make it that way though, because I don't want to deal with anybody else's garbage at the end of my pregnancy, because I'm in that space where I'm just like, I'm becoming ready to give birth. Like usually like the last 6 weeks of pregnancy, I spend the majority of my time in my bedroom. Travis gets a little annoyed with it, but I do it. And cause I have to, I'm like, that's my drive, because this is my nest. This is a nest that I built. When we first moved into this house, I was pregnant with Henri, and his dad's ex-wife wanted to come and see our house. And I said, okay, but she can't go in our bedroom. Cause I was ready. It was close to the time I was going to give birth to Henri. I said, she can't go in the bedroom. He goes, why not? And I said, because she can't go in the bedroom. That is my nest. And I have worked hard to cultivate the sanctity of the space. And I don't want her ruining it. And she's like very virulently anti-Catholic. And she's just I'm not going to say anything. I can't say anything else about her because I have nothing nice to say about her. And I didn't want any of that coming in here, and I just didn't want her negativity in the space. And he's like, okay, fine. So she stood outside of the doorway right here. My bedroom door is right here. She stood outside of the doorway and just looked around. She's like, oh, big bedroom, and whatever else she had to say. But I don't want to be around other people except for my family. And I want to be in my room, and I want to be doing the things that I need to do to get ready for my baby and nourishing my body and resting. Like I take a lot of naps at the very end of my pregnancy. Make sure I get the rest I need, the supplements I need. If I want to take a bath, I'm going to take a bath. If I need to eat sushi, I'm going to eat sushi. Like all of these things I really do to keep myself in that space of, I hate the phrase self-care, but self-care because I'm about to give birth soon. And I've already been prodromally laboring, so my body's already doing the work. And that's why I give birth so quickly too, is because I go through weeks of prodromal labor. To the degree that sometimes I'm like, oh, well, we might be having a baby tonight, but I don't ever get anything ready. So Travis is like, no. When she gets things ready, that's when I know we're legit, but I don't get things ready. And he's like, okay, yeah, this is not real. But I think it's real. And I'm hopeful that it's real because I'm always so excited to meet my baby too. But yeah, I'm not fun to be around at that point. And so I don't try to be around people except for my family. And I had another point I was going to make about this, but I get lost in telling my stories. I'm sorry. Brandy says hormones are hard for sure. Self-care is important because it's not just your comfort, but your baby. Lauren said, and then that's true. It is for your baby too, and I don't want this to sound new agey, but you have to, you are given the instinct. And this is part of the home birth, the unassisted bits of home birth here. You're given that instinct to listen to your baby, to talk to your baby. I'm not going to say communicate with your baby because you're not going to hear anything your baby's saying to you. Your baby's not saying anything to you, but do you know what I mean? Like, I'm saying this really wrong. I don't want us to sound new agey and weird. That's why I'm having a hard time coming out with words that don't sound that way. But like just having that communal time with your baby to prepare yourself and to prepare your baby. I think that talking to your baby is, I mean, I do it now even. Talking to your baby is important, especially like, you're like, I have babies that wait till the last minute to turn. Like they'll wait till the last couple of weeks to turn. And so I'm like, okay, your head's right here underneath my rib. Can we do something about that? And then I'm talking to them and I'm also just gently coaxing the baby down, right? And like pushing the baby's butt up. And that's what helps to learn how to palpate your baby and figure out where their butt is and figure out where their head is, so you can move them around and you can help them to do what they need to do, you know? So yeah, God-given instinct. We can agree on that. That's what I'm trying to convey. Like you have this instinct. This is all part of your maternal instinct to talk to your baby and manipulate your belly and get that baby ready for birthing too, because it is both of you. It takes both of you to do it. Lauren says, speaking to the instincts, with my third born, I had an intense feeling to get out of the water birth tub, but it was too late. He was born and inhaled water. Yeah. And see, we have to listen to those things. And sometimes they do come too late. And sometimes it comes and then we're in the middle of a contraction and you can't move. And you're like, oh, but I got to get out of the water. I got to get out. I got to get out. I got to get out. And you can't. My good friend's last baby inhaled water when she was born. And it was not good for her. She did end up with some hypoxia and some delays as a result of it. And that's why, as a midwife, I will never, and I never did, attend a water birth. I won't do it. Water for pain relief, yes, but water for actually birthing in, I'm personally adamantly opposed to it. And I don't ever recommend it to anybody because I am genuinely afraid of hypoxia and children having learning delays because of it and developmental delays because of it. But yeah, we have to listen to those instincts. I have to stand up. Well, in the hospital, you want to listen to your instincts and like, no, you got to lay on your back. Why do we have to lay on our backs? Like that's the most horrible way to give birth to a baby. Your baby has to literally go uphill when you're laying on your back to give birth. Gravity is your friend when you're giving birth. So get up on your hands and your knees, or get up and stand up while you're birthing and squat your baby out. But they don't want you to do that in the hospital because then they don't have the vantage point. They can't control the situation. They can't torsion your baby's head out of your body and pull your baby out instead of letting your body glide your baby out. And so these are some of the things that you'll learn about and you come to understand as you give birth at home, because you recognize, okay, wow, this process is like, it's flawless. It's really flawless when you trust it and you let your body do what it's supposed to do naturally. And you don't pay attention to, again, that media inculcation of, okay, this is how we give birth. On our backs, screaming and in pain and terrified, with a million people screaming and beeping noises all around us. You got to get that notion out of your head. You get that notion out of your head and instantly your results are improved. Cecilia, when she was born, my recovery with Cecilia was really difficult. I had a very rough period of hemorrhoidal issues because of how she came out. And I had really severe tinnitus in this ear because my blood pressure got really high. Not high enough to be worried, but high enough to give me tinnitus. And she came out, when babies come out, they come out facing your backside. And then they turn, and then they come the rest of the way out. Well, she came out facing my leg, my left leg. She came out facing my left leg and then just came out that way. She didn't turn as she came out like babies usually do. She was just anxious, I guess. And she's just like, nope, coming. And that's how she came out. And I think that's why I had such a massive hemorrhoidal problem afterward. And cypress oil, ladies, let me tell you what, cypress oil is your bestest best friend ever. and we'll get a little, if there are men in the room, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you right now, your wife gets hemorrhoids after she has a baby. So when I was caring for myself afterward, when I would take a shower and whatnot, I would clean myself with Bronner's peppermint soap. Oh, it was so relieving and cooling and all of this. And then use cypress oil to help relieve a lot of the inflammation. So and you just put it in a cotton swab and put it on there and just leave it there. And of course you're laying in bed. So you're not going to have to worry about it moving out of place or anything. So cypress oil, oh, it was a lifesaver. My friend Velvet bought it for me. She brought it to me. She's like, here you go. And I was like, oh, I love you. I love you. Thank you for bringing me the cypress oil. It was the best thing. So yeah, learning about all of this is going to, the book learning is one thing, but then as you experience it more and more. Like I said in the beginning of the stream, the more I've done this, the more I've learned that I don't need so much. So I only do certain things now. I only have certain things on hand. I only have certain herbs on hand. I only have certain oils. I only have certain tools. And that's how I go about giving birth now. And I do want to touch on miscarriage a little bit. I've had a lot of women reach out to me recently with regard to miscarriage. And because I have another video about miscarriage on my stream. And, oh, hi, Rhiannon. Hi, I see you there. And Brandy says, so much isn't known about natural births. So grateful to hear this from you. Always wanted to natural without epidural, but wasn't brave enough. Yes, we do. We do need the knowledge, and we're divorced from it. And there are very political reasons why we're divorced from it. And I say this as a recovered feminist, not as any kind of feminist, not as I don't believe that there is any kind of right kind of feminism. I do believe in that there is a such thing as misogyny, though, and I think medical misogyny is the most pervasive misogyny that we face, because birth outcomes, especially in this country, because birth outcomes are the way that they are, and because of there's this really excellent article that was written, I don't know, probably 20 years ago now. I've got a copy of it still. It's called The Rape of the 20th Century. And it's about medical obstetric rape, essentially. Women feeling as though they've been raped during pregnancy observation and birth processes. Just this overwhelming sense of loss because they know instinctively that their birthright was taken from them. It is so much my mission to make sure as many women as possible, Catholic or not, know what our bodies do, that this is a grand and glorious thing, that you are capable of doing this, that incidents where you need massive intervention are rare, and that you alone are the one who is capable of making the decisions necessary for how you're going to give birth to your baby. For all women, I think one of the most important, next to salvation, most important things that we need to know, to do to rectify the human family is to restore the individual family. First of all, restore the individual family, but for women to give birth naturally and at home as much as possible, and to breastfeed our children. Like, honestly, those three things, I think, are how we change the world. Next to salvation, restoration of the family, birthing our babies naturally and at home as much as possible, and breastfeeding them. That is how we change the world. Also, I'm going to tell you, we should eat chocolate. I'll define the study. There was a study that was put out a few years ago that women who eat chocolate while they're pregnant have happier babies. I don't make the science, guys. I just follow it. I gotta take another drink here. Talk a lot. It's really dehydrating. Okay, more questions. Who's got some more questions? Let me see what I've got on my Twitter here. I don't have Anybody asking questions on Twitter now? Yeah, chocolate. So I have a little basket next to my bed because sometimes I wake up in the night really hungry. I've got a basket that's got like beef jerky and it's got chips and it's got little Ghirardelli chocolate squares. My children came and ate all the chocolate. I was so mad. Casey says, I would never choose to have another hospital birth. I love having home birth. Same here. If I can absolutely avoid it for the rest of my childbearing days, I will never give birth in a hospital. I do understand that if a circumstance arose that it was an emergency, I would have to go. But I would still maintain my autonomy and tell them what for, because I'm not going to be bullied by a doctor or nurse or anybody like that ever again. Never in my life. And that's why I talk about the misogyny of all of this. I can't remember the name of the book. I'll have to look. I know somebody who would know the name of the book. I'll have to look it up. There's a book that talks about the cyclical demonization of midwifery practices. And it's like every 75, 50 years or so, there's a new demonization of midwifery. It's usually less than 75 years though. And it's really since medical obstetrics came onto the scene that it really started happening. That midwifery was really like within the course of a generation, we went from like 96% of births being at home to less than 1% within the course of a generation. And it's purely political. It's purely, and I can't, if you look at the history of obstetrics and gynecology, it's rife with abuse of women. And I think that it's really important for women to recognize that this has been done to women for time forever. Like this has happened to women forever. And we are in an age now that all of the information that we need to carry on our pregnancies and birth our babies at home is all available to us. I was going to mention 2 books and I left them downstairs. I pulled them out and I meant to bring them up here, but Anne Fry's Holistic Midwifery. It's a pink book. It's about this thick, maybe thicker. Holistic Midwifery. It's a pink book about that thick and I don't know, about this big. And that's a must-have. The other must-have is basically any edition of Varney's Midwifery. And it's a big blue book. So it's a big textbook. Those 2 books, plus any books that you want to read, any Ina May Gaskin, anybody, Michelle Audant, gosh, name some names, name some birth names. I know Lauren knows a whole bunch too. Any of these books that you want to read just for the extra moral support, but those 2 books, Holistic Midwifery and Varney's Midwifery, they're kind of pricey. But if you go on like abebooks.com or like Thrift Books, you can usually find them for a little bit cheaper than you would be able to find them on Amazon. Let me read some of the comments here. Brandy, the sad thing is most women don't get to see the natural process. We only see the comfort and necessity of medical birth. Absolutely. And I said that earlier with regard to medical students. They don't get to see the natural process. And because we've been so media inculcated with, like I said, with the screaming and the scary and the, oh my gosh, the baby's coming all of a sudden right now while we're in the middle of the restaurant, and the blinking lights and all of it. Because of all of that, that's how we've been trained to need obstetric medicine. And we are absolutely a comfort society. We want to be comfortable. Well, sorry, God-fearing women, we weren't meant to do this comfortably. We just weren't. And it's better for our bodies and it's better for our babies. Like biologically speaking, it's better for our bodies and better for our babies to give birth in this natural way. And I'm not knocking women who have to have a C-section. And I'm not knocking women who were given C-sections and then later realized, oh, well, I guess maybe I didn't need to have that C-section for my 8-pound baby. I'm not putting blame at your feet at all. Where I will put blame on women is if they just outright deny and say, oh, home birth's not safe. That's subjectively false. And I want women to do the research. And I want women to have all of these avenues of research instead of hearing, from media, oh, home birth is dangerous because look at this baby died in a home birth because of this reason. And usually if you look at the cases on these stories, these scare tactic stories, it's usually not a midwife's fault. It's usually something that's congenital that even a doctor wouldn't have picked up. Like the last 3 that I can recall having read about, they were all something the doctor wouldn't even have picked up on. And so no neglect charges are filed or no murder charges or anything like that. Brandy says, I had to have a C-section for my last one because he was feet down. And I can understand that, but also I can refute it because I have assisted women giving birth to footling breech babies. And it's fairly simple. There's a little bit more maneuvering that you have to do with like the chin and like helping the baby's head come out, but it can be done. I can understand why a doctor would just automatically leap to that though, because they aren't trained. They literally aren't trained in physiological birth and all of the myriad of ways that babies can come out. Obviously, if your baby's transverse and you're in labor, you're going to have your baby by a C-section. There are some instances that it just has to happen that way because otherwise the baby will not survive. And thank God for that. And we've been doing C-sections well before obstetric medicine was established, 150 years ago. We were doing C-sections. I mean, there's evidence of C-sections having happened in ancient Egypt. So, I mean, this is not a new concept that sometimes there's an emergent situation where a baby has to come out not the normal way. So, yeah. That's it. That's where I'm at. I just want women to be aware and to have the courage to say no. Just because we are submissive to our husbands doesn't mean that we have to be doormats to them or to the world. Like, we're not called to be doormats to anybody. And when we say, okay, I'm more comfortable birthing in a hospital, here is my list of what's going to happen, to the best of their ability, they need to honor that. And they need to recognize that your no is a complete sentence. Period. End of story. No, I'm not taking the vaccine. No, I'm not getting a swab up my nose. No, I'm not wearing a mask. No, I'm not going to lay on my back. No, you're not going to have continuous fetal monitoring. No, you're not using this goo in my baby's eyes. No, no, no. Complete sentence. Every single time. Let's see here. Catch up with the comments. Brandy says it's important to be aware and have the knowledge. And Brandy, she didn't know. Yeah, and that's what a lot of women didn't know. It comes like even with circumcision. Like, we don't circumcise our sons. And because we've done the research and we know like 80% of the world doesn't circumcise their baby boys. Why is that? And why don't they have these catastrophic results in old men in the rest of the 80% of the world? Like they say that little boys are going to have here if we don't circumcise them. So that kind of stuff. Like, we're not given that knowledge, and we haven't necessarily been trained to seek it out. And the people who do seek it out have so often been called crackpots, or they're hippies, or they're fringe, or they're crunchy, or there's all these labels for the people who seek out the knowledge of the things that we're not told. And Brandy didn't know, and a lot of women don't know. A lot of women don't know that you can say no. Oh, my doctor won't let me. No, that's not the answer. I mean, when it comes to birth too, I'm even reticent to fall in line with, oh, my husband won't let me. Again, I addressed this earlier. He won't let you because he doesn't have the information. You haven't equipped yourself with the information to be able to equip him with the information so that he has the better sense of, okay, this is how I can control this uncontrollable situation for myself. and how I can trust my wife and her instinct that God gave her. Because really, that's what it amounts to. You have to trust him and give him the information. If this is something that you want for you and your baby, give him the information, equip him with the understanding so that he can make his decision and say, I have my qualms about it, but you're my wife and I love you and I trust you. Because that's what it comes down to. It's about trust. And we need to have these conversations, and we need to stop being so afraid of them, and stop. I mean, look at the way the world is right now. Honestly, the only person I trust is my husband and God. I don't trust anybody else. I'm not going to put my life in the hands of a person who can't give me accurate information about flu statistics right now. It's just it's not going to happen. And I'm not calling on women to be disobedient to their husbands at all. At all. If at the end of the day you can't come to an accord, I think that I have a hard time with this one, because I think that women should give birth where they want to and with whomever they want there. But this is your husband's baby also. So the conversation needs to happen. And you can't be afraid of it. And you can't be, even in this, you can't be afraid to be assertive about it too. But it's just a matter of having the information and being equipped to answer your husband's questions and showing him studies and statistics, and that home birth studies out of Norway and well, basically all of Scandinavia and Denmark, and studies out of there with regard to home birth, and because they use the midwifery model. Countries that use the midwifery model have better outcomes. And if you show him those studies and you show him that you are confident in this and you've got your ducks in a row and you're going to order your birth supplies from in his hands, and and this is the midwife, if you guys want to go for a midwife, this is the midwife this is the set of midwives I want to interview. I've got seven midwives I want to interview. And if you're in a state where midwifery is not legal, whatever you're going to do about that, I'm the kind of gal who would go clandestine. I would go with an illegal midwife, because that's me. Because I don't believe that this is something that should be regulated by the state, because this is something that women have always done since Eve. So I'm kind of anti-government in that regard. So yeah, and Brandy's right. It should be a beautiful experience for all, for you and for your husband. Even if he's cleaning up your big elephant pile that you just dumped because you're pushing a baby out. It's gross, but the whole experience is beautiful. You're in this together. You made the baby together, and here you are working together. He's supporting and loving you. Like I said, that there's that your space and then his space around you, loving and supporting and protecting and safeguarding you and your baby. When that's cohesive, doesn't matter how gross it gets, the experience is gorgeous every single time. And you're like, man, I am so in love with you right now. Look at what we just did. It just is this explosive oxytocin love fest that happens. And that needs to happen every single time. You can't say it's beautiful for the doctors administering the medicine, but it's beautiful to bring life and be part of that. Yeah, it is. And I can understand that there are good doctors, and I'm not going to knock all doctors, because I do know some really good doctors. But again, this has to be about personal choice and women having, women taking back that power that they have, that autonomy that they have to say, no, okay, so I'm going to do some research. I don't know that I want to have a birth in a hospital. I don't know that I want to have home birth. I don't know that I want to have a birth center birth. So I'm going to explore my options. I'm going to weigh the pros and cons. I'm going to be in prayer about it and listen to my God. I'm going to talk with my husband and inform him of every step of the way. because if you can't talk to your husband about how you're going to give birth, like, what's it going to be like when you're new parents, who's going to change the diaper? Oh, well, it's your turn. And then it just becomes your turn the whole time. Oh, no, it's your turn. It's your turn. It's your turn. And so you're breastfeeding and you're changing the baby's diaper and you're trying to keep yourself clean and you're trying to get enough sleep and you're trying to eat and and I can tell you there was one baby that we had where Travis had to go back to work right away. And that was hell. It was hell. It was the worst postpartum I've ever had because he wasn't there. And so we weren't sharing in that newness of our family, that new family dynamic. And it is, I'm telling you, every single time you add a person to your family, there is a new family dynamic. And to have him gone during that time, it was the hardest postpartum period I've ever had. And next time I'm pregnant, my next pregnancy, I'm blowing up your DMs. Do it, please, because I'm always happy. This is obviously, we're almost at 2 hours here. I'm obviously happy to talk about this topic, right? So having the support of your husband and the wherewithal to say, this is what I want, and provided my health and my body cooperate, this is what I expect. And being willing to say no and having your husband there as an advocate for if you choose to give birth in a hospital or choose to give birth in a birth facility, or if you hire a midwife. I mean, sometimes you even have to tell midwives no. You have to tell midwives to get your hands off of me. Or your husband has to kick the midwife out of the bedroom because she's just being a little too much, To have him there, having these conversations ahead of time enables him to really be your advocate. Enables him to be that protector, abad and shamar. My husband goes back to those words in scripture all the time, abad and shamar. And I can't remember what one of them is, but it's like to care and protect, or something like that. Those are man's duties, abad and shamar. And if he can't do that, if he can't listen to you and hear what you have to say, I really feel that he's failing in his duty to protect you. And then you also have to have, and it's hard sometimes, if you are not used to asserting yourself like that, it's hard to do. I understand that, but it's about that trust. I mean, he's your husband for a reason, right? So you obviously trust him. So you have to trust him enough to lay this out for him and say, listen, here's what I researched about these things. This is what I would like to do. I'd like to hear your thoughts about it, and I'd like to talk about it. Keep the dialogue open, and then, you're more likely to be fruitful when you keep that dialogue open instead of just laying it down and saying, this is what I'm doing, whether or not you're on board, because that's a breakdown of trust right there. Do you know what I mean? Him being overall, not sure what you mean, but like protective over all of it. Is that what you're talking about, Brandy? So I think that's all I'm gonna talk about tonight, unless any of you have any more questions. I'll give it a couple seconds here to see if anybody has any more questions, and then I'm gonna wrap it. Because I started making dinner and I haven't even eaten yet. And I think Travis is done with work now. He's had a late week this week. So he works, thank God he's been able to still work through all of COVID. Oh, I said the word. Me too. He's been working through all of this. And, but he works out of his office in our basement. And so I was still working, or I came up here to start the stream while he was still working. So I haven't even eaten yet. I don't know if he's eaten yet. And then we've got, let's see, it's 8:18. So we've got bedtime pretty soon for the children. So I should wrap up the stream. I am so appreciative of all of you who showed up. And the stream, I don't know how long it takes for the process. It's almost 2 hours. So it might take a little bit for it to process, but please share it. If you are new and haven't subscribed yet, please do. And please give the video a thumbs up. I'm this close away from the 4,000 hours that you need, the watch hours. to monetize your channel. And it's never really been my aim to monetize my channel, but it's kind of exciting that I'm that close. But please like, subscribe, share the stream. And I'm going to try to do this again next week with Travis. I think next week, he might not be working next week because of the holiday. So I'll check with him though. And we'll see if he can come to give kind of the pop-up perspective of all of this, because I think that he has a lot to say. He used to do some peer counseling with a postpartum depression group. He did male peer counseling, that is, for new dads. So new dads that were struggling with what their role is now that their wife is a mother. So he has a lot of insight, and he has he's got a lot to say, and he's really supportive, and he knows his role in care, and he knows my role in being the mother and the birthing woman, and what that dynamic really should look like if this is the environment that you choose, if the home is in the environment that you choose, be it with a midwife or unassisted. Let's see here. So yeah, so if you have questions, if your husbands have questions about home birth, anything, drag him by. I'll schedule it right away. Like maybe I'll do the reminder schedule tonight in my YouTube studio so that it's there, and you guys can set the reminders too, and drag your husband in and say, listen, we're going to listen to them. And we'll do our best. Bring your questions, and I will talk to you ladies next week, I guess. We'll be it'll be Wednesday, probably about the same time, 6:30, 7 o'clock. If it's a different time, I will post that. It'll just depend on Travis's work schedule. All right, take care, all of you, and God bless you. And I hope you're having a wonderful Advent season, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.